taxing their wealth because we don't have any wealth taxes.
Why do you think they're leaving?
I think the reason they're leaving is because the UK economy is really, really weak. Because the UK consumer is really, really weak. Because we've absolutely crushed the spending power of your average British family.
And where are they
going? Your average
going?
British family can barely afford to feed the kids and turn the heating on. So why are you going to start a business here when the customers are absolutely impoverished?
Look, it corresponds with a new tax that we brought in, which was we ended the non-dom scheme. So the non-dom scheme basically said if you're living in the UK, but you've got businesses all over the world, then we only tax you on what you've got in the UK. And if you die in the UK, we'll only tax you on your UK assets for inheritance tax if you're a non-dom. But if you die in the UK and you've got wealth in India, once that non-dom scheme ended, they basically said, we will tax you on everything globally. If you're if you're a tax resident in the UK, everything you've got globally, we want 40% of it. So unfortunately, every wealth manager contacted their clients and said, you can't stay here. You're going to have to get out. It's gotten really bad. 1,000 people a month are leaving. And in the UK, 1% of people pay 30% of the taxes, 10% of people pay 60% of the taxes. And you imagine if we're sitting out at dinner and there's 10 of us out for dinner and one person says, hey, I've got this, I'll get 60% of the bill tonight. We say to them, no, it should be 70%, it should be 80%. And they say, you know what, I'll get up and leave. So they leave, everyone else's bill just doubled. So what's going to happen is if we drive the millionaires out of this country, every ordinary normal person who pays 10 grand a year in tax will now have to pay 20 grand a year in tax.
So the reason they left is because we used to allow them to not pay tax. And
on their global incomes, on their global
So isn't it a bit more like if we were 10 of us at dinner and there was one guy who came onto dinner on the condition he wouldn't pay, then leaves? Because these guys weren't paying tax anyway. If the reason they left is because they weren't paying tax.
It's like saying, hey, I'll pay 60% of this table. And they say at the table, hey, wait a second, we also want you to pay for everything that's happening at other restaurants as well.
Isn't it a bit more like these guys
and we're stretching
were
the
here
analogy
on a condition? You yourself said.
No, you're 100% right.
The reason why they left is because we let them live here
taxes,
on the condition that they didn't have to pay taxes.
On their global, taxes matter, right? So why is everyone going to Dubai? Dubai, they're going there because there's no tax.
These guys, they live in Dubai. Their money comes from the West. They are making money from the West, while your average Western ordinary person watching this show now cannot afford to buy a house, cannot afford to have a family. We can tax those revenues at the point of sale. Why do we allow these guys?
It's called a consumption tax.
No, it's not. It's a tax on profit.
You just said a tax on consumption. You just said at point of sale, which means it's a consumption tax.
Based on the profits. You look at how much profit they have,
that's
and
not
then
a
you work
consumption
out where the profits go. Exactly. It's not a consumption tax, like I'm saying.
So if you tax profits, right, then those profits have to accumulate in that country. And because of the digital ecosystem that we now have, the world we now live in, I can lease the database off of my company in Luxembourg. I can license my logo from a company.
I understand how profit shifting works.
Go on.
Okay, so listen, these guys are not Gandalf. You just say, we don't accept profit shifting. We don't need to accept profit shifting. China does not accept profit shifting. We did not accept profit shifting 50 years ago. We do not have to accept profit shifting. But you have a government class who are extremely wealthy and a media class who are extremely wealthy saying it's impossible to tax rich people. And I would like to say, I will agree 100%. It is difficult to tax rich people.
Yeah.
It is very, very, very difficult to tax rich people.
The
I don't come here saying I want to tax rich people because it's easy. I know it's hard. I know probably I'm going to lose. I know our viewers' kids will live in desperate poverty. I know that. I do this because it is hard. If we are a country which says to ourselves, we don't try and do things which are necessary to keep our kids out of poverty because they are hard, then our kids will live in poverty. I don't need to be here. I'm a multimillionaire just like you. I could be in the Philippines drinking pina coladas. I come in here because I come from a poor background and it's ordinary families like my family, like the kids I grew up with, whose kids are going to be in poverty. It's difficult, but it is necessary. Sometimes we have to do things not because they're easy, but because they are hard. That is what makes a rich country rich, and that is what protects ordinary people. Listen, our grandparents lived in poverty. Did they say, let's not change it because it's hard? No, they didn't. They fought and they demanded healthcare, education, housing, food, and they got it. They got it.
So
That's why my parents could live a good quality life. They got those things. They got those things, and they were aware that in order to do that, you could not allow the super rich who have been living lives of luxury for hundreds and hundreds of years to eat everything while ordinary families couldn't afford to feed their kids. I know it's difficult. I know it's difficult. And I know I'm probably going to lose. I know that. I know I'm probably going to lose. And that means our viewers will be poor. But I do it anyway because I do not want this country that I grew up in to fall into desperate poverty.
I agree with you on the passion, and I agree with you on the problem. I don't agree with you on the solution because in 2019,
we'll all be rich and our kids will be rich.
In 2020, and that's not what I'm saying. In 2020, we made a decision globally to shut down the economy, and we taught everyone that they can live and work from anywhere. The biggest threat to everything you're saying is remote working. The fact that we can live and work from anywhere. Our grandparents, their boss, if their boss owned a company, that company had to physically be in the country, and the boss had to physically be in the country. If we look at today, there are plenty of fitness trainers who work for a gym, and the owner of that gym is somewhere overseas. Plenty of people work in a restaurant, and the owner of the restaurant lives overseas. You can run a business from anywhere in the world right now. So the problem that we face is that you're describing how, on one hand, you say we need to tax it at the point of sale, which is a consumption tax. And
it's
then,
not if it's a tax on profits.
Okay, and then you say a tax on profit, and then you say, oh, but then we'll stop profit shifting. By the way, I'm also actually all for this idea of stopping profit. I've already said, I think it's utterly ridiculous the way that many of these global companies are treated. And if we don't stop that, then all the money just flows out to the tech companies. So I'm with you on that. But when you say tax the rich, the actual people who own